With Season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen only a few weeks away, and with the early screenings of the first 2 episodes come and gone, one of the biggest discussions going on in the community right now is how much of the manga will Season 3 cover. Because the Culling Games is the series' biggest arc, and at least compared to the other 2 major arcs in the series, it has a lot of heavy lifting to do, with developing the lore and characters from Shibuya and setting up Shinjuku Showdown, but I'll save any deeper analysis of those arcs for a separate video. So with everybody else sharing their opinions, I thought, hey, might as well throw my hat into the ring on what I expect Season 3 to cover. Oh, and I'm sure it hasn't been that long since I did my last Jujutsu Kaisen video. Let me just check in. So I know what you're thinking. It's been a while since you've done a video on Jujutsu Kaisen. And you'd be right. Anyways, let's first establish what we actually know about Season 3, which is actually a decent bit. The first and most important thing to address is that a lot of recent marketing for the season has been titled The Culling Games Part 1. Meaning the 24-ish episode season is probably going to be split into 2 parts. And we obviously know that part 1 is going to be dropping January 8th, that's when the season starts. But we've yet to get any actual info about part 2. But if I had to give you my best guess, I'd assume the end of 2026. I mean, at least it would give those animators at MAPPA some time to rest considering what they've been pumping out recently. Now, the reason I bring this up, even though it's not confirmed, is because this will change how the season is handled. Because with 2 parts, you're going to need 2 satisfying endpoints. That'll probably both be cliffhangers. So moving forward, my prediction, we're going to assume that it's 2 parts, and we're going to handle part 1 in this video. Now, the second thing we need to address is Jujutsu Kaisen execution. For those who are unaware, many anime studios have begun dropping the first few episodes of upcoming seasons in theaters a few months before they officially come out. In MAPPA's case, they dropped the last few episodes of Shibuya plus the first 2 episodes of the Culling Games, which personally I would have loved to have gone and seen, but where I'm from, it was only being shown for 1 day, and I was dead that week. But some other lovely moviegoers were able to share some very illegal clips of the movie. Because, you know, it wouldn't be JJK without some leakers. And it got so bad that the official Twitter had to drop a statement about it, threatening to sue people. But I guess thanks to them, we're able to tell how much content is covered in these new episodes. Or, you know, we could have just waited for someone to post about it on Reddit. So we know that episode 1 and 2 cover approximately from chapter 138 to 144. So those 2 episodes will cover the entirety of the Itadori extermination arc, leaving us with about 10 episodes left in part 1 that we do not know. So now's the time where we put on our investigation glasses and go have a look at the initial trailer we got for the Culling Games. Because in this initial trailer, there's 2 lines that we hear Yuta say that aren't from his fight with Yuji. They're actually taken directly from his fight in the Sendai colony. And I don't see why they would throw in these lines unless we were going to get that far in part 1. So working off of that, we have 10 episodes to cover 35 chapters. Which, considering a lot of that is solely going to be fights, it isn't that bad. Just for comparison, Season 1 covered 63 chapters within 24 episodes, and Season 2 covered 72 chapters in 23 episodes. So with all that setup done, I guess this is where I'll drop the final spoiler warning. Hey, if you don't want to know anything that's going to happen in Season 3, click off. And if you're going to stay, hey, why not drop a sub, a like, you know, support the channel so I can keep doing this stuff. Now, let's get started. With the beginning of the perfect preparation arc. We'll get Tengen's introduction and the subsequent lore dump taking up most of episode 3, with the tail end covering chapter 147 giving us a clean slate for Maki's visit to the Zenin clan, which is about 5 chapters long, but it's mostly one long fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if MAPPA decides to extend it given their love for these over-the-top fights. So in that case, I could see them saving chapter 151 and 152 for their own episodes, to give Naoya some more screen time given his questionable popularity. Or, you know, some more Toji glazing, because they also love that. But just for the sake of clarity, I will assume that all of Maki's fights are covered in episode 4. Next up is the third year's recruitment, covering from chapter 153 to 158. And given that there's a lot of talking and more explanations about the Culling Games rules, I think it's probably safe to assume that this will be split into 2 episodes, with episode 5 covering chapters 153 to 155, which has an amazing place to leave the episode with Hikari calling Yuji a liar for not knowing Gojo. So that leaves episode 6 then to cover their fight, chapter 155 to 158. With some extra time given probably then to tease both Higuruma and Kashimo. Now, these next few chapters are a bit of a pain, because all of them could be used as a great ending or beginning point of an episode, but don't really flow well together as a whole episode. Take, for example, chapter 160, one chapter that I am personally really excited to see how they adapt. It itself is already split into 2 different perspectives, with the Kenjaku bit and then the Jujutsu High students. It could flow well as the start to an episode with that bit with the Jujutsu High students then going to them entering the colonies. The only issue is it has to follow up on chapter 159, which is the entire Higuruma section, meaning you'll have the Higuruma section, then you'd have to put the Kenjaku section in, and then the students. So I'd be surprised if stuff here didn't get moved around like that Choso episode back in season 2, the Red Scales, with them splitting like the Mei Mei and the Choso and Yuji fight up so they're not like skipping in on each other. However they do it, I'm sure will be good, but I'm just going to assume episode 7 will cover the beginning of the Tokyo colony with 159 to 162, ending with Yuji and Megumi following their new companions. And now they're in the colonies, I expect Yuji and Megumi's fights to be self-contained. Ideally they could last about an episode each. The only issue is this panel. I can't see a world where Mappa decides not to end the episode here. It's like perfectly in line with those snap endings they started doing near the end of Shibuya. Meaning episode 8 has to cover chapter 163 to 165, putting us in quite the tight squeeze for the last few episodes. Now it is possible they decide to cover all of the Higuruma fight in one episode. I mean, they've covered 7 chapters in one episode before, though that was also with them cutting a lot of fluff. So it's not impossible that they include chapter 166 in episode 8. To be honest, I could see them covering up to the start of chapter 167, but that is a bit of a long shot. So in this estimation, let's just decide to play it safe. And with the Yuji section of the Tokyo colony complete, let's move on to Megumi's side. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of this part of the story, but these fights are filled with some really great moments. Mainly Takaba. So going off of our previous assumption, episode 9 will cover the last part of Yuji's fight, chapter 166, through to about halfway through Megumi and Regi's fight at chapter 169, with episode 10 being the conclusion of the fight covering from chapters 170 to 173. But how much of 173 will they cover in this episode? Because this chapter functions as the jump point between the Tokyo and Sendai colonies. But right before the perspective shift to Yuta, Megumi actually accomplishes his goal and finds Angel, which is a great point to end the episode, but Yuta's segment at the end of that chapter isn't exactly something that would work well opening an episode up on. So if they don't cover it in this episode, I imagine they'll probably completely change the introduction to Sendai. But that's just my opinion. To be honest with you, they could cover those last 7 pages in the ending credit scene for episode 10, or maybe they will just put it at the start of episode 11 and I'm just wrong about that. So now we arrive at Sendai with 2 episodes left to go. And these are the simplest to guess. I mean, it seems fairly reasonable to assume that they won't start Sendai unless they planned on finishing it. And since it's basically one long fight scene, only being 7 chapters long, well, actually 7.5, since chapter 181 contains the ending of this section. So if we're rolling with my previous assumptions, episode 11 should start with chapter 174 and end with 177. And I'm not just saying that because this panel would be an amazing place to end the episode at, Mappa, you know. So then our final episode will go from chapter 178 to halfway through 181, dropping us off at the Miwa cliffhanger. Though I do expect they'll give us some teaser for Hikari moving into part 2, probably an end credit scene or something. So now that we're finished, here's my final recap for how much I expect the first half of season 3 to cover from the manga. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm like a chapter or 2 off. Being within that range would actually be great, but I am pretty confident in my guesses. I think most people agree anyways that it'll end at chapter 181, or maybe that's just delusional people like me who believe that. Though like I said at the start, there's a few spots that could change drastically depending on how much additional content Mappa wants to add on. We already know from the early screenings that they added a lot to the Yuji and Yuta fight. Hopefully we should know anyways by the time this video drops. That is, if I actually get it edited in time. It's supposed to drop on the day before or the day of the Jump Festa because that's when we'll be getting a lot more information about Season 3. Hopefully another trailer showcasing a lot more of the Culling Games cast because I cannot wait to see some of them animated. Come on. And if I am wrong about Season 3 being split into parts, then around probably episode 9 or 10 I'll drop the second part to this predicting the rest of the season. Though I'm pretty sure most people agree that there's 2 possible ending points for Season 3. So I don't know how interesting it'll be to do that. But, you know, if people like this enough, sure, I'll go ahead and do it. Also, if I am wrong, feel free to come back at the end of the season and laugh at me then for being wrong. And if you've enjoyed, do like the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. It lets me know you actually want to see more of this stuff. And I'll see you when I see you.